All right. Welcome to my NUFS-144 presentation. This is going to be on Nigerian food culture. Couple of aspects we're going to focus on are how ethnicity, religion, and geography shape the regional cuisines that developed in the area sort of over time. And we're also going to talk a little bit about some of the foreign influences that helped shape the regional cuisines that we have today. A lot of interesting stuff in here, so we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so first I'm going to show you this map right here. Hopefully you're seeing that. This is a map of Nigeria. Now, if you can see, this is a map that kind of divides up the different ethnicities, but there's like I think I read it was something like 280 different ethnicities, but for this presentation, to keep it short, I'm only going to talk about the major ones. There's just only a couple that I picked out, but they all kind of have the most diverse like food culture. So first, I'm going to talk about some important events that kind of impacted the food there. So before the colonial era, um, this is pretty much everything before the 16th century. The pretty much, I mean, the continent Africa, but especially Nigeria, engaged in a lot of trade. So they traded with like Middle East, they traded with parts of Asia, and through that they got some bits of their food and their spices, and that had changed some of their food. That helped kind of give their food a lot more diversity. It introduced a lot of spices, especially from the Arab part of the world, the Middle East, that came to trade with them. So they developed they got their spices like cinnamon and some other things from there. And then you had the transatlantic slave trade, which as horrific as it was, it did also bring some more diversity of the food to the area. And kind of the same thing with the British colonial rule from then on until the revolution, which Nigeria then got to declare its independence, I believe, in 1960. So yeah, moving on. So Nigeria's climate is mostly considered to be like mostly tropical. This is a map that shows the rainforest, the monsoon, savannas, and then there's a couple areas where there's desert and it's pretty hot year round. And then the yellow areas you see in the legend there is where it's a drier, where the summers are kind of dry and also a bit warm, but not necessarily enough to be called a desert, kind of in between desert and tropical area. So what happened because of that, you had different plants and ingredients that thrived in different conditions due to the climate in the area. And this also contributed pretty heavily to the diversity of the food culture later on. So the people there generally just took advantage of the local crops and plants that they had that thrived depending on the climate. And that's kind of what was the base, kind of served as the base for their foods in different areas. Yeah. Now we're going to get into nitty-gritty of the first major area, which is ethnicity and food. So right here, I've listed a couple of the major ethnic groups in the area. You got Yoruba, Igbo, and Hasua Fulani. Now, Hasua and Fulani are two different ethnic groups, but they're just in the same region, and as such, they kind of share some of the same dishes. So I've grouped them into one there for this presentation. So I'm going to show you, just talk a little bit about some of the traditional dishes by ethnic group. So a couple examples of this. Every group has its own signature dishes. Jollof rice is really popular among the Yoruba people. And ofsala is a staple among the Igbo. And that's kind of like a popular rice dish, I believe. I might be wrong. But these dishes are often used, they use, like we talked about before, the local ingredients and are integral to a lot of celebrations and gatherings. It's pretty staple foods, regular ones that you'll find there. And then you've got the impact. We're going to talk about the impact of ethnic heritage on cuisine. So depending on the ethnicity, the food is kind of characterized by the specific ingredients in the dishes. Yoruba tend to use yam powder dough. Igbo use a vegetable soup and tend to be a lot of veggie base. And then Hausa Fulani use more spices and use more spiced meat. So I also want to talk briefly, which I thought was really cool. They also have some fusion foods that are from diverse ethnicities. And it's really cool to have sushi kind of from Asian in early like Asian influences, just made with the local rice and fish. Just kind of puts the same spin on it. It's really cool. So moving on, we're going to talk about religion and some culinary practices with that. So I like this. I like that I got to touch on this one because it's something that the professor recently talked about in her previous lectures in terms of religious restrictions depending on within food culture. So Nigeria, kind of what we talked about before, different religions impose unique dietary restrictions. So you'll have Muslims who adhere to halal guidelines, where they avoid pork and alcohol and only eat halal meat, which you guys know about already since we talked about it. And then also Christians who often abstain from certain foods during Lent. So they'll do the same, have the same practice that's kind of done around the world when it comes to Lent. Same applies in Nigeria. So I'm going to talk about some festivals and food traditions according to religion. So festivals tend to play a pretty vital role in showcasing the culinary diversity that gets influenced by the religion. So for instance, the Muslim festival of Eid al-Fitr features dishes like jollof rice and various meat dishes. And then while Christmas for Christians in the area tends to involve more traditional meals like rice and chicken. So religion also has some impacts on the regional variations. In northern regions, which is a Husna Fulani region, has a predominantly Muslim population, so they favor spicy and grain-based dishes. Again, kind of touched on like the Arab influence that came with the spices and everything. Um, and this happening like way back with early trade relations in the 7th century and then forward until colonialism came about from the British. And then it's kind of same thing with Christian regions just prefer stews and local vegetable dishes. So Muslim traditional dishes often include biryani and suya, reflect their cultural heritage a bit. In contrast, there's popular Christian dishes are pepper soup and various rice preps, highlight the amalgamation of diverse influences in their cooking styles, offering a glimpse into the culinary tapestry of Nigeria. It's really cool. So we're going to go into the geography section. So Northern Nigerian cuisine is characterized by its use of grains such as millet and sorghum. Northern Nigerian cuisine features stuff like tuwo, which is a thick rice pudding, and kilishi, which is spicy beef jerky. And I've got a picture of that right there. It looks super good. And then there's Southern Nigerian cuisine, which is known for its rich use of veggies, spices, and seafood. So there's stuff like jollof rice and pepper soup that illustrate a lot of very vibrant flavors that come from the area's coastal lands and diverse cultural influences. And then in the West, you've got cuisine dishes like pounded yam, which I have a photo of right there. And the culture kind of takes its particular influences in the region's food. And then the East is renowned for soups like ofe sala, like we kind of went over before, and more traditional soups and stuff and stews. And now we're going to come to our conclusion. Quick summary. Nigeria's ethnic, religious, and geographic makeup make for a really unique and diverse food culture, which all have different dishes and flavors depending on the region. So it's really cool. It's really cool to see that even within different countries, you've got regions that have developed differently depending on all these factors. You know, they got stuff like environmental, they take great advantage of the environmental differences to make their dishes and kind of dependent on agriculture with the crops and stuff. And then you had religious and then also foreign influences kind of coming in and making it extremely diverse. Which, I feel like it's pretty important to recognize diversity in Nigerian food culture because that promotes a lot of nice appreciation and respect for various ethnic backgrounds in the regions. And today, even, there's going to be increasing globalization that influences Nigerian food, with a lot of fusion cuisine starting to emerge as people start blending stuff together from different places. As we saw, like this is nothing new to Nigeria because we even saw how they adopted sushi from Asia, which is really cool. And yeah, now I'm gonna basically leave it up for questions and discussion. Thanks for staying until the end if you guys made it here. And please feel free to share your thoughts and your questions on Canvas. I'd really like to hear what you guys got out of this presentation. And yeah, I'm really glad you guys enjoyed it. Let me show you my works cited page. It's the boring stuff. But yeah, thank you for listening in, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day or evening. Okay, let me stop sharing.